All right, thank you both for joining me, and thank you everyone in the audience. We will try to keep this as engaging as possible. We're really excited about this topic, and I know that we're holding you from lunch and some exciting breakouts. I think we'll build upon a lot of the learnings that have been shared over the past 2 days from FHR and Nucor and Qatar Energy LNG, many of the other industrial operators that we've heard from at Transform so far. And I'm certainly excited to learn more from the Holcim and Worley journeys. Both of these companies touch our lives in many ways on a daily basis, but are brands that maybe the average consumer doesn't know that much about. So before we dive into the depth of our discussion today, I'd love to have each of you introduce Holcim and Worley in a bit more detail. So maybe Marjan, you can kick us off. And I know you prepared a few slides, so why don't you speak to the background of what is Holcim? Maybe you can introduce us.
So first of all, thank you, Lila, for the invitation, and thanks everybody for having me here. I'm coming from Holcim. We are a building material company. We are having a mission to decarbonize building materials in the world, and we are way ahead on that process. So we are a rather large company, one of the biggest in the sector. We have more than 60,000 people operating in 60 countries, and we invest heavily in R&D and decarbonization part. If you look at the company structure, we are doing several businesses. Next slide. We are looking into the more traditional business of Holcim, which is building materials, cement, aggregates, ready mix, etc., where we master the operations, and we do this for more than 100 years. But in the last decade, we are entering more into solution and products, addressing markets like roofing, isolation, facades, in order to provide the full scope of the building materials covering the building industry. And my role in that is I'm leading smart operations and looking into our manufacturing sites, namely cement plants, which are our biggest sites in the company. And we run there the program called Plants of Tomorrow. Last year, we have presented a bit of this on the stage here. The main goal of this program is to modernize our plants, to bring new technologies, be it digital twin, robotics, automation, but of course, data and AI is in core of that. And we will talk about this a bit later. Thank you.
It's a big scope, so I'm excited to dig into it. Before we do, maybe Adrian, you can introduce Worley for us.
Yeah, sure. And thanks, Lila. And also, I apologise in advance. Listen closely, I am speaking English. So Worley is an Australian-founded and listed EPC delivery company. And we set ourselves a purpose of delivering a more sustainable world. And that really means helping our existing customers decarbonise, implement renewable energy solutions in an effort to try and make the planet more sustainable. As you can see here, Worley comprises about 50,000 people, and we're globally situated across 45 countries. Our latest half-year results delivered $6 billion of aggregated revenue in Australian dollars, and an EBITDA of around about $375 million. And the Engineering News Record ranked us as a #2 international design firm. So it mightn't sound big, but we're actually quite large in the energy, chemicals and resources sectors. Saying that, like I said, we service energy, chemicals and resources. We've got a long history of doing so. And we actually segment our customers into conventional energy, which is the energy that we're very familiar with. Low carbon energy, looking at various ways of doing a more decarbonised delivery of energy. Chemicals and fuels, including biofuels and biochemicals. And finally, resources, mining, water and the like. And delivering a lot of the critical metals that are required, taking us forward in the new world. So we're on a transformation journey, and it's underpinned by 50 years of project delivery data, but it's also held back by 50-year-old workflows for delivering projects. So we're on an effort to try and utilise that data and modernise the way that we do things. And we've really started with just efficiency gains that we can do across the business, but we're really focused on reimagining the delivery of EPC projects going forward in the future.
Amazing, thank you. There's a lot that we can dive into, and given that you're both leading the digital journeys at your organizations, maybe we'll start there. And Marjan, you could start us off. What are some of the business goals driving digital and AI at Holcim?
Sure. So the answer to that is rather simple. There is no real difference between our business goals and our AI or digital goals. I mean, be it increasing safety or reducing risk of our operations, or increasing revenue or reducing cost, and finally, last but not least, decreasing our emission footprint and increasing sustainability. So pretty much everything we do in our AI and digital sphere is also reflecting into our business goals. Now, more specifically, we see the biggest potential in three particular functions of our business. One is manufacturing, where I'm coming from. There is one of the largest chunk of our cost and our operations, which we want to optimize. The other is logistics. We are also one of the biggest logistic companies. We move materials across the globe in millions of tons, and this, of course, is creating a lot of cost, which could be optimized. And finally, we're looking in the commercial, sales and marketing. In each of these segments, we have particular goals which are then addressed by AI or other technologies.
Yeah, operations, logistics, commercials, sounds like challenges that every company is facing. Adrian?
Yeah, so our journey started maybe 2 years ago, and 18 months ago, we first started experimenting with AI and generative AI in-house. And 12 months ago, we started looking for partners, including C3 AI, to actually supercharge what it is we're trying to do. After seeing 100 times, I feel like our ambition was actually maybe a bit low. But initially, our intention was facing into a world where there needs to be a rapid deployment of capital. We wanted 50,000 people to be able to do the work of 100,000 people. Now, that was all about efficiencies. It was about making life easier for our workforce, and let them be more creative, let them be able to innovate more rather than focused on mundane tasks. So we were trying to unlock creativity. We're also trying to, I guess, leverage that capability. And we've gone from let's supercharge to 2 times, and let's actually focus on how do we create a digital-first mindset within the business? How do we really unleash different ways of collaborating and working more effectively across the globe, which is no easy task. And we are very integrated globally. We do lots of work shared between different offices around the world. And I guess, more importantly, it's about project delivery for us. So how do we actually deliver projects faster, more capitally efficiently, and get the outcomes that our customers are looking for?
It sounds like a very manual and people-oriented business, so I'm going to want to come back to that.
Yep.
Before we do, Marjan, we've been working together at Wholesome for some time, and I know that you've been working on implementing and scaling, particularly predictive maintenance is the first use case we worked on together, even before working with C3. So given the many years of experience you've had, and I'm sure there's been a lot of struggle along the way, so could you share some of the important learnings that you've had?
Sure. So yes, I mean, one of our struggles actually brought us to the partnership of the C3, and I will come to this a bit later. But as you mentioned, we work on this topic for quite some years, at least 5 years. We are on the road of predictive maintenance, and we face various challenges. I mean, in the beginning, when we were doing POCs or pilots, the main challenge was the business value. How to actually prove that this thing works, how to make sure that actually we get a buy-in from the stakeholders and for the decision makers. And we thought at that time this is our biggest challenge. Of course, we were wrong, because once when we make 1 or 2 pilots, the next challenge was how to put it into multiple locations, multiple plants, to do, let's say, a limited rollout. And we find out that many things that worked in the POCs or the pilots are simply not repeatable. We cannot do it efficiently on the scale. And this continued then with trying to reach a large amount of our assets, our plants, to reach 50 or 100 deployments. And then we realized this we cannot do without proper data platform, without infrastructure to support that, to make sure that we have unified layer of data, we talk the same language, and we can start automating tasks. But even that was not enough, because this becoming then quite intensive on the workforce, on the specialized resources, data science, etc., because most of these things were still done manually, and we have a lot of customization. So we don't have 2 plants which are the same, we don't have 2 equipments which are the same. So we were looking ultimately to find a platform or a tool which will help us to automate the whole process. This is where we land in the partnership with C3, and then we actually manage to do things way faster and way better in much shorter time. So at that stage, for comparison, we move from deploying, let's say, around 50 machines per year to deploying around 250 machines per year within 1 year of work. Now, this is not the end of the road. We are now having quite large number of assets covered with the machines. Now we are in the adoption and utilization of this. And this brings us to the operating model. I mean, we are a very distributed company. Most of our knowledge and process are in the plants. And we are now working on enabling plant people, engineers, to actually use these tools and other tools that we provide to them.
Wow, so it sounded like 5 years of trying to get this to work, really hindered by technology, but ultimately it comes back to getting people more productive. You need the right technology to let the people actually make the software sing and get it implemented into the plants in a really distributed manner. Adrian, you hit on this a little bit earlier that your projects are really about getting people and materials out into the field. You're moving large pieces of equipment around in these big construction projects. So what are some of the specific practical challenges you expect in such a manual environment, and how do you think AI could help there?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, there'll be no one in the audience, I don't think, that hasn't heard horror stories about cost blowouts, schedule blowouts, destroyed shareholder value in the implementation of capital projects. Happens everywhere. And it's not because any particular EPC contractor is not up to the task or that any particular customer hasn't really planned what they're doing. Projects are complex. And one of the biggest challenges that we have is integrating data from many different sources. Engineering data, the design work, the calcs that get done, vendor specifications, fabricator and constructor details, customer requirements, and all of this data is in different systems, comes in different forms, and it's needed to actually accurately track and measure what is actually happening on a capital project. So that's the biggest challenge, is the data integration. And then once we do the data integration and pull it all together, there's the analysis to actually get to the answer of how things are going to allow us to track these things properly. So that's one of our biggest challenges, is how we actually deal with that data. And obviously, we've got ways of doing that now, and I can see that AI, generative AI, will help us in that task. It'll also help us simplify and automate processes wherever we can automate them, our workflows, so there's efficiency gains to be held there. And then the real value, I think, is in optimization. And in fact, for our customers, speed to product is the biggest thing that they can do. That's how we get the value that they're striving for. So anything that we can do that improves the engineering schedule, that optimizes the supply chain so that we improve getting things to site, and even optimizes constructability and construction, all of those things add up to value created for customers. So there's a good start.
Yeah, so there's human and physical real-world challenges, but in order to make any progress there, actually, first step is data. And I think of a term that Nikhil Krishnan frequently says about generative AI, it's structuring the unstructured information. For you, it sounds like a lot of unstructured data around schematics and diagrams and
Absolutely.
text.
Some of it analog, some of it digital.
Yeah, what a challenge. Let's switch gears a little bit and shift to, instead of thinking through all the challenges and what we're trying to tackle when we implement AI projects, let's talk about the use cases and the value. So for engineering and for manufacturing use cases, what's really going to move the needle here? So Marjan, when you think especially about predictive maintenance, you're trying to estimate value of something that didn't happen. It's value in avoidance. So how does Holcim think about the value of AI for maximizing production, given that you're really trying to calculate a counterfactual? And what are some of your success stories?
Yeah, so that's one of the hardest questions in this whole project, so in general in predictive maintenance. And the simple answer is we don't. We don't account cost avoidance in our business cases. I mean, for good or for bad, this simplifies things a lot. because then we can talk the same business language as our business leaders. So ultimately, we do talk about cost reduction of actual maintenance cost. We talk about repair time reduction, and we talk about metrics like MTBF, which are really showing that our equipment is more reliable. Now, this is one part of the game, which is then helping us justifying the overall business case of the product that we want to do, like reliability. The other part is actually how does it look like in reality with hundreds of stakeholders, maintenance manager, preventive maintenance engineers, plant managers, who actually need to have their own business case for the equipment they choose and to get payback for that investment. And to do that, we actually have quite elaborated way of creating business case for each deployment we have done and actually following up on that. So typically, year after the deployment, we go back to the plant and we check what they achieve, how much money they can really save, is it still valuable investment for them, do we need to remove it or to change it, etc. And on the other end, on the product side, we follow also quite a similar methodology like you do. We have Net Promoter Score, so we talk with the senior stakeholders about overall portfolio, how does it fit business goals, and where they want us to drive it in the future.
Oh, wow, really interesting. So it's basically an annual look back on the business KPIs, see how the business is performing, as well as the feedback that you're getting from the site-level users.
Absolutely. It's as simple as that. So either we spend less this year versus the last year on the maintenance cost, or be it on the energy cost, electricity, or whatever is the goal of the deployment.
And did you land on that approach to evaluating value from the beginning, you know, when you set that out at when you started 5 years ago, or did you learn and pivot over time?
We get better over time. We tend to be both too conservative and too optimistic with the business case. In the beginning, we had a bit of ownership problem where people want some things to work and try to get things done for sake of technology, but we didn't have the real business case. But we make it better over time. It also helps us to basically reduce our scope to the healthy part of it, which is really delivering value, and to remove the scope, which was basically a noise, which was not really delivering value to the people in the plant. So.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. And Adrian, together with C3, we've been working with your team and Worley on building out a roadmap of use cases. I know we have a lot on the table right now. Yeah. So when you think about priorities and sequencing, there's so many things that we could be doing together, but you're choosing really specific projects. What are some of the factors that go into that prioritization?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult, as you know, and I'm actually 25 years old, but I've aged immensely in the last 2 years. It's not too dissimilar to Holcim. When we first started on this journey, what we actually did was mapped basically our value chain from early opportunity identification, so very early sales, through the sales process, contract close, project initiation, and then the meat of it, engineering, procurement, construction, through to asset handover. And there was quite a few teams got involved in that, and probably similar to Qatar Energy, we really looked for pain points first and foremost. What's causing people pain? What stops people wanting to use the processes and systems that are there for repeatable delivery? And we started to then whittle them down just using a very simple rubric of how hard is it to do and what's going to be the benefit. And that benefit was very qualitative at the time. We've since matured, as you know, and we now look at it through, I guess, a few different lenses. And first and foremost, strategic fit. If it doesn't align with the strategic vision of the business, we don't bother. We don't take it any further. Then we start looking at criticality. So what sort of pain point is it addressing? Is it an area where we might be bleeding money because we consistently do it poorly? We might look at traditional things like, are we getting a productivity improvement? Are we getting a cost reduction? Are we improving someone's user experience? And then we start to get into more less tangible things like customer satisfaction, pretty important to us, and surprisingly does relate to the bottom line. We also find that there's other things around there that are really less tangible, but maybe enable things further down the track. So we really go through a bit of a step like that. Once it gets through there, obviously we then start thinking about how secure is it going to be? Can we scale it? We find a lot of tiny little use cases in the business that really we can't scale across our business. So they might satisfy a team of 20 people, but not 50,000 people. So we don't tend to waste too much effort on those, unless there's a learning to be had specifically by doing it. Security, scale, and then finally, it comes down to organisational readiness. And again, we've heard about change management in the past. We've tried many times over the years to do many different things, and adoption is always a problem. So this, both is the organisation ready from the amount of change we're injecting in, because we have got a lot going on at the moment, but also, is there someone in the business who will take ownership and be accountable for the adoption and scaling throughout the business? Because if I just push it out there, nothing will happen. But if lives are made easier, people just draw on that and we get a huge sucking sound.
Yeah, and actually, to dig a little bit deeper, organizationally, how do you get that done? It sounds like you have key leaders across the business that you're working with as you drive the digital roadmap to both bring use cases to the table and then help also make those decisions.
Yeah, that's right. So from an ideation point of view, we draw on many different people, and what we try to do is not get people from transformation, not get people from digital, not get people from the functional part of the business, but the frontline people delivering projects, not even line managers. They haven't touched a project for 10 years either. So we really want the people at the coalface that are experiencing the pain. They generate the ideas. From an adoption point of view, once we get to that point, we've taken a product development approach. So we've got product roadmaps along the different streams that we actually work through. And we identify product owners who are accountable for, I guess, proof of concept testing and getting the MVP out there and tested. And then once scaling comes about, we do it through the operation. So the operational business, we have networks, for engineering, procurement, the various disciplines in engineering, construction, and even the functions, and they're accountable for putting it through the business, all the way to our group presidents who, have a KPI tied into adoption across the business.
Really interesting. So we've talked a lot about the challenges, the use cases, how you prioritize, and what's been going on over the past maybe 3 to 5 years. But there's been so much change and innovation. I mean, even just in the past 2 days that our teams have been talking about, but also just broadly speaking across the technology industry. So could you share, in light of this much advancement that's really accelerated, what's coming next for each Worley and Wholesome?
Good, so maybe just first to just reflect on what you said on the ownership. I think this is one topic that I forgot to mention as well. I mean, we pivot on many things, but what we didn't pivot in the last 5 years is the strong business ownership of all of these initiatives. And this will stay in the future as well. So looking at what is coming to us, we will look into the near future on adding more technology into the pain points which are not addressed so far. We are going to do generative AI, or we're already doing this pilot with you folks, and we're looking in the hard problem of cement manufacturing process optimization, which is also ongoing pilot with C3. And we do invest in the several different custom applications where we want to keep, if you want, our core knowledge, still using AI on the C3 platform, but not going with a particular product and developing one by ourselves. And this worked very well because we have now a team who is fully enabled to be self-sufficient, and with partnership with your folks, it is getting us there. Now, a bit on the midterm, the topics which will become for us as an industry quite important are smart materials, and we will definitely look into that. What kind of materials we can use as alternative raw materials, but also how much we can change into our heavy processes on the finished materials and the products we are selling. And eventually our operations will become super complex. I mean, we are on decarbonization roadmap. We will have soon on top of our cement plants chemical facilities, air treatment facilities, carbon capture units, storage, transport, potentially hydrogen units as well. So our plants will not become anymore a single plants. It will become interconnected chain of different businesses that we simply do not know how to operate. There the AI will play a crucial role to actually help us master this very fast.
Wow, sounds like a complex future and one with a lot of unknowns.
Absolutely.
Adrian?
Lots of unknowns for sure. So the future, I guess, immediate term, 2 things. I spoke about some of these things about delivering projects today better. Really big focus on supply chain optimization. Really big focus on constructability and getting better at that. But also developing an ecosystem of like-minded partners. C3 AI, obviously, I think yesterday or the day before, we announced a partnership with both NVIDIA and Dell at helping us achieve things at scale. So we really want to get that ecosystem together that drives, I guess, a reinvention of the way we deliver projects. We think that, I guess, our next challenge, if we were to boil it down into E, P or C, is to get into engineering. So there's a lot of repeatability in engineering. There's a lot of mundane tasks that go around with engineering. Don't be offended, engineers. I'm an engineer myself. There is a lot of boring stuff that we do. But there's a lot of really cool stuff that we do as well. So that if we can remove, I guess, the mundane stuff, the repeatable stuff, and start to utilise designs, not where we can pick up an identical design, but use generative AI to take one design with a different set of parameters and spit out the new design, that frees up our people to be much more creative, do a lot more value-add thinking up front to make the project run more smoothly. And ultimately, we'll be integrating new technology as it becomes available and is proven, and that will just reinvent the way that we do things. And to be quite frank, I'm pretty excited about it.
Awesome. I also am an engineer by training, and that was many years working as an engineer in oil and gas that led me to my job at C3 thinking, God, there must be a better way. So I think a lot of people would resonate with that idea. I think if I had to distill our conversation into a couple key takeaways, what I heard from each of you is, number one, the use cases must be focused on high value and also strategically aligned to your core business, right? Working on some back office function just isn't the most important thing for driving value at scale. And that's the second thing, is how can you scale these technologies? Yes, you can prove a use case at a single plant, but unless you can scale that to 150 plants per year, I mean, it's just not going to deliver value. And then third, it's all around the people and making sure that there is that adoption, checking in on them, and thinking about how to make them more efficient and productive in their work. So really important learnings. I'm sure is very instructive for all of you, especially in the industrials in world that have joined us at Transform. So thank you so much, Adrian and Marjan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.